are back with another wonderful conversation to get to know one of our therapists, Nia Jones. I'm Jake Jackson Wolf, joined by.
Katie Cashin. I don't know if we're actually on these sides when we point
That's
to
what
each
I'm getting.
other.
I don't know how it'll,
Are you there?
like the
But
Brady Bunch.
yeah, I'm Katie Cashin, therapist and co-owner at Be Well Counseling.
We are super excited to be joined by one of our longest tenured therapists here, Nia. Um, Nia, before we launch into the questions, is there anything you want to say by way of introduction, or do you want to leave the good stuff for the conversation?
Ooh, options. I'm happy to be here. I'm ready to. Well, we'll leave it for the questions, I guess.
Option B. I'm here for this.
Let's
So
go.
yeah, let's launch right in with what's turning into my favorite question, which I've maybe said about another question in a previous interview, um, but I I believe we're allowed to change. So, um, what's your client Venn diagram look like?
Venn diagram. I get I get a lot of people. I have like a picture of a Venn diagram right now, but I get a lot of people looking to want to work on relationships. So if that's parents, partners, kids with themselves, their relationships with themselves. Um, I would say that's one part. And then also get a lot of people wanting to deal with their anxiety, if that's like general, social. Um, and if we were to put at least one thing in the middle, I've seen a lot of like presenting concerns, what like initially brings us in, really reaching back to childhood
Mm.
um, in some way. If that's like how they were treated by peers or caregivers, messages that they received, about like gender, sexuality, race, education, even change, like you name it. Those messages, I've seen a lot of it like go back to the beginning in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, stuff at the root, stuff there. I think you're starting to talk into some of this. If that's what's at the root, is there anything else specific that's bringing people in to see you? Anything happening in those relationships or anything specific happening in their life that's bringing them in?
Yeah. It could be, something happening at work or some type of rift in a relationship. If it's like my kid is growing up too quickly and
Mm.
I talk about this, or if it's a change in a partnership, and that could be like a change in a partner's life in the partnership, or
Mm.
a dynamic of the relationship, if it's like opening in any way, closing in any way. Um, yeah, again, like those transitions, and a lot of anxiety can come with any type of transition as well. So yeah, I would definitely say those areas. I think also like unlearning and redefining. I get a lot of people like quoting that word for word of like, I need to unlearn this and I want to redefine this in a specific way.
Mm.
Um, yeah, which is really powerful and impactful. Um, Also with parts work, um, values based work, where people will come in and kind of name it as that, or I'll kind of reflect it and be like, this kind of sounds like some values based work. I wonder if you're open to that.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that's
Mm.
definitely a gist of it.
This isn't surface level stuff. This is especially, I love that language of unlearning and redefining. like, and also go, what a brave thing to do in our world in 2024, to be willing to be open to even know it's the possibility to unlearn
Mm.
something. And just so grateful that people can find you in that, knowing that that's like, you speak to that so well. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
already in our, I don't know how long we've been having this conversation, but very briefly, I just get this like depth. And that's my general experience of Nia, right? Is that we get into
Mm.
depth in a way that feels, that can be really intimidating or scary, I think, to people, but you do it in a way that feels so safe and comfortable. Like, oh, Nia seems good here. So in that like social referencing place, I go, okay, so I must be good.
Mm.
She doesn't seem scared.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I definitely hope so. I've um I've also gotten a lot of feedback with like how I show up with people.
Mm.
Um like if that's just me being authentic, being real. I know like authenticity can sometimes feel like a fluffy word, or
Mm.
like a how do I get to that? Like what does that mean? Um and I always am just like being real, like who I am. Um and how that fits into like the therapist role.
Mm.
um so yeah, I definitely value like safety and pacing, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, to just lob a giant question at you, what's your why in this work? Why do you do this work?
Yeah. i I think about this often. I feel like it's a pivoting or like an anchoring thing for helpers, or at least it can be.
Mm.
I like, it's gonna sound cliche initially, but just helping people in those like intricate pieces of healing.
Mm.
Um, like I really get to be and help people in their journeys of being human in this life. Um, and I don't take that lightly. So I think that's really cool and can be really impactful. I also think that we as therapists, in a way, like heal generational trauma, generational wounds. So I value like this specific avenue of helping. I think it's really special, really important. Um, and not everyone can be a therapist. So I guess it's a part of like my purpose, my why. Yeah.
Mm.
It feels right.
It does. Yeah.
That seems so important to name, and not even not in a territorial way of like, not everyone can be a therapist, but I think
Yeah.
there is this kind of narrative. I don't know. I remember, especially when starting, being like, what am I doing? I'm just sitting here listening. Like, I'm going to get paid to sit with someone and listen. And there are people who I know who have felt a real barrier to doing therapy, who use the language of like, how is this even a job? You're just listening or sitting. And that makes what you just said really important, that it actually isn't something that everybody has the capacity or space or skill for. Um, and like people who, or maybe not even forever, maybe for some folks, it's not a sustained thing. And to really understand that as a gift in different ways. Um, Already, I'm being reminded that, yeah, Nia, one of your gifts is this ability to zoom out and to hold perspective and to almost honor, to definitely honor the big work that you were doing with people. And I'm gonna try to like zoom us in now to what a session with you looks like. Can you tell us a little bit about how that goes?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I always show up with like the areas I know I want to check in on
Mhm.
with folks. And that could be like surface level, or deeper of like, hey, we were at this really deep spot last time. I kind of want to like dive back and check in with that. Or it could be like, how are you physically? How is it like being in this room right now? Joining today, like in the middle of your day. Um, but I really follow and flow with each person's needs. Um, if that's like unpacking something or finding insight. Um, yeah, like it's not very structured. I invite the flow. For us
Mm,
both as well. If I'm feeling something or seeing something for them, I'll ask if I could share that, or yeah, just always having permission for them. Um, in whatever. um,
mm,
but yeah, and I guess with like what like as therapists, I don't believe that we're blank slates. I believe that we are intuitive. We sense things, if that's in a space or if that's in the content of things. So I like to, sometimes pause and first ask if it's okay to pause where we are in the conversation to like notice something together. If it's like bodily shifts or a sense of something, a curiosity or something that's unsaid. Um, I may also invite like breath work or maybe some movement into sessions, to really, if it's like, especially if it's anxiety and trauma, I believe that we can't always like stay up here where we talk. We have to really bridge the body with the mind. So I definitely try to do that.
mm,
Yeah.
The thread that's coming through so far in this conversation to me is consent, which
mm,
I know is rooted in this place of like being trauma informed, right? And understanding that people have people have autonomy when they show up in this work, and being able to, the way that you weave that through, it feels so masterful, like so uh, I don't know an even better word for that, that it almost doesn't, it's like you're asking questions and inviting somebody into something without it feeling like I said earlier, of we're going to dive down deep into this painful place or this uncomfortable place. It feels like both fully informed consent and also inviting and warm. Where I'm like, I want to talk to Nia about my childhood trauma right now. But I won't, because that's not the place for this. Later. Um, if you're open to it. Um,
mm.
I think I have some ideas about how you'll respond to this question. But let's go with it. What keeps you inspired to come into doing this work every day?
Hmm. It goes back to my why in this, of
Mhm.
like why did I want to do this in the first place? um yeah, I mean, I genuinely love what I do as a therapist, and like being there for people, if it's exploring, dissecting, um I guess caring for people in this way. I believe it's a gift. I've seen that it's a gift. So yeah. And also like sharing space with other therapists, if
Mhm.
that's getting together to do some art, shout out to Caitlin Cordial. um, or if it's like consulting. I've consulted with both of you so many times, and if that's like a hey, could we meet for this amount of time, or if it's like popping into each other's offices naturally. So yeah, hearing from other helpers, practitioners is definitely inspiring.
Mm.
That feels very, very real. That I appreciate the dual answer there of sort of what maybe what is our organic inspiration? Like, what is it that got us into this? What like continues to light that fire? And inspiration takes some like work and investment. And it sounds like the response to that is like, yeah, connection continues to feed that. Connection in some way is what allows that inspiration to be like energizing in the day to day. I'm
Mm.
really, yeah, when we do get to consult, when we had those years of supervision together, which to me all felt like a gift, that it- I'm hearing in this, what I got to hear through that so often is you really approach this from a lens of this is an honor and this is a gift to get to do, yes, to get to do this work, but to get to sit with this person. And they're, like you
Mhm.
said, whatever that person brings, whether it's what's happening in the present, whether it's tied to generations. Um, I imagine within how you do this, it highlights its own particular challenges. What do you see in your work as some of the challenges that you, your clients face in this work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, what level are we talking here? Like what level? um,
All of them? Any,
yeah,
like, which one speaks to you?
yeah. I think I can't help but not think about insurance initially, like starting out. I know we've had so many conversations about structures in our world and systems. Insurance undervalues clinicians.
Mm,
And I think that that can create like a trickle down effect of other people undervaluing it or not having the space to truly understand it or
mm,
like be in it, maybe. Um, or even like afford it, like our healthcare system.
mm,
I like as a therapist, I directly see how the systems in our world, our institutions, our everything, everywhere in our world, our laws and everything, how that directly affects our clients, um, and the people close to them. Like if it's their family, if it's like going back to kids or partners,
yeah.
um, I really see that, and that's hard. That's really challenging because there's only so much that we can do. And you know, if it's like an hour or in our therapeutic relationship, um,
Mm.
yeah, I guess I took a systems lens with that. Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Jake. Go.
Uh, we've had these conversations, a million times around here when we did take insurance. Now that most of us don't, um,
Mhm.
you know, I, it feels like this. I know that I've sort of stopped and reflected many times and gone, wait, how did we become responsible for fixing an entirely broken national and perhaps global healthcare issue? Right? There's this moment of clarity of like, oh my God, we're this small practice in Towson and we feel this weight. I'm imagining solo practitioners in our area around the country that stop and feel that same weight of like, how's this landing on me?
Mm.
And this is a societal issue that like is a fabricated issue, right? Of ever since insurance got involved, which like I'm imagining at the time being such a profound shift of, all right, we can get some more access to this for people. And then the ways that that has been continually eroded over decades to this place that we're at now of, I don't know that there's a therapist around that won't have an opinion about insurance. Whether they take it or not, there's every therapist has this relationship to that system and professionally often, right? That says this can't be it. And the ways that that bleeds into the work, right? Of none of us got, I didn't have any formal education or training on insurance in graduate school. It this wasn't a part of the work then, and now it just gets sort of jammed right in between us of between us and our clients often.
Yeah, it creates
Mhm.
that opposition,
Mm.
Jake, that you like are really good at pointing out a lot of the time where when you're in it, whether it's in a session, whether it's figuring out how to do this as a job, it can feel like it's you against the person across the table from you, in the couch in the seat across from you. And to zoom out, Nia, I'm so glad you went to systems and structures and want to say, by the time other people are listening to this video, they will have heard, I think most of our conversations landed there, which is affirming and like encouraging and disheartening ways that almost everyone on our team that we've had this conversation with goes like, the challenge is like not what's happening in the room. It's what's happening outside that's having to come in. That all of our team has named that in some way. Um, rather than like client resistance is the problem. Like, yeah,
Right.
yeah. No, you went right there. And that's very real. Is there anything else within that that you notice, or that you do with that with clients?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I first and foremost, like I'm gonna be with whoever's in front of me. I'm gonna be with my client. And be with in a way of like empathetically, energetically, physically, emotionally. Um, yeah, I'm gonna empathize. I'm not gonna just say that's hard.
Mm.
I hear you and that's hard. I'm not gonna just say that. Sometimes that can be enough, of course. But I do find that like when it comes to how people are affected institutionally with our laws, again, like healthcare, all of it, um, politics, we do have to bring that into the conversation and interventions. So I may share, how I feel about something just to help like bring more space to it, to help them feel heard. I may share of like other things I heard, to help it, if it's like thinking about it or like action oriented things. Yeah, I'm gonna show up in those ways. And I may also just like listen, and let them, if it's vent or talk through what they think could be helpful or not, or just be in silence together.
Mhm. It sounds like you,
Yeah.
like you let your humanity show.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think that's, Jake, you were talking about depth with
Mm.
Nia. I think that's something that I recognize feeling whenever we get to talk, whenever we get to connect. It's like, oh, right. Back to the human for a moment. And I'm so grateful for your willingness to like share and be with us today and talk with us a bit about that. Yes, talk about the work that you do, but again, drop in here as the wonderful human that you are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we've named with other folks that we all have wonderful bios on our websites, on different directories and what have you. And people can, will, and have read those things. I don't know how you get this from there, right? And this feels so, it just feels so real. And you used the word authentic earlier, to actually get to, this is the Nia that we know and love around here. That I'm just excited that if even one other person who watches this gets to have a little bit of a different sense of what's it like to sit in a room or on a Zoom call with Nia, what a gift to that person today.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, thank you both so much for having me and providing the space and saying kind things. But no, and seeing me. Yeah. So I'm grateful.
So are we.
So some of the logistics, Nia, you are currently accepting new clients, right? As of May 2024. And seeing folks both in person and virtually.
Yes. Yep,
Uh,
that's correct.
and as we have with everyone else, we'll have Nia's contact information on a card at the end of this. You can also find her at our website, bewellcounselingservices.com. Email her at nia@bewellcounselingservices.com. I'm really hopeful that this has been an insight for people into meeting and getting to know Nia, and that some folks might want to get to know her even more.
We hope you will. Thanks everyone for this conversation today and for everyone who's tuning in. Until next time.
Be well.
Be well, everybody.